Lesson 6, Day 1, you will solve systems of inequalities. System of inequalities is two or more inequalities that have the same variables. The solution is the ordered pairs that are solutions to all of the inequalities. In order to graph systems of inequalities, you have to first remember that you need to graph the boundary line, and y equals mx plus b. M is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And then if the inequality has a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to, it means it includes the points on that line, so you make a solid line. And if it's a less than or greater than symbol, it does not include the points on the boundary line, so you would want to use a dashed line. Example 1 says solve the system of inequalities by graphing. So we're going to start by graphing the first inequality. So let's think of the equation y equals negative 2x plus 1. The y-intercept is plus 1, so I'm going to put a point on 1 on the y-axis. And then the slope is negative 2, so we're going to think of that as negative 2 over 1. So rather than rising, since it's negative, we're going to fall 2 and run 1. Fall 2, run 1. I like to make several points so I can draw an accurate line. Or you could go up 2 and to the left 1. And now since it has a greater than symbol, we're going to want a dashed line. Now if you remember from when we did this before, we want to figure out which side would be the solution. So we're going to test a point, and I'm going to test the point 0, 0 by plugging in 0 for x and 0 for y. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. And so we end up with 0 greater than 1. 0 is not greater than 1, so 0, 0 is not part of the solution. Therefore, I'm going to shade the part of the line that is to the right. All of the points that are in this blue shaded section are solutions to the first inequality. All right, now let's graph the second inequality. The y-intercept is 3, so I'm going to go up to 3 on the y-axis and put a point. And then this time the slope is 1, and it's positive, so we're going to rise 1 and run 1. And this time it's going to be a solid line since it's a less than or equal to, means it includes the points on the boundary line. Now we have to figure out which side to shade this time. So let's go ahead and test 0, 0 again. If I plug in 0, 0 into this equation, or inequality, if I put in a 0 for x and a 0 for y, 1 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 3 is 3. 0 is less than or equal to 3, so 0, 0 is part of the solution. So I'm going to want to shade the half of the graph that has 0, 0 this time. So I want to shade this direction. Now where the two shadings overlap, that is the solution to the system. So this dark blue part, any of the points that fall in that section of the graph are solutions to this system of inequalities. You may want to pause the video and try the next one on your own. let's go ahead and graph the first inequality. The y-intercept is -2, or is +2, I'm sorry. And then the slope is 2, so we're going to rise 2 and run 1. Rise 2, run 1. We're going to have a dashed line because it does not have the equal sign with it. It's just a less than. And now we have to figure out our shading, so let's go ahead and test 0, 0. If I put in a 0 for x and a 0 for y, I would end up with 0 is less than 2. 0 is less than 2, so 0, 0 is part of the solution. So we're going to shade the half of the graph that has 0, 0. Now let's graph the second inequality. The y-intercept is -3, and the slope is -1. So we're going to go down 1 and right 1, down 1, right 1. And this time it's going to be a solid line since it includes the equals. It's greater than or equal to. Now to figure out the shading on this one, let's test out 0, 0. If I put in a 0 for x and a 0 for y, I would end up with 0 is greater than or equal to -3. And that is true. 0 is greater than or equal to -3. So let's go ahead and shade the part that has 0, 0. So 0, 0 is part of it, so we're going to shade this half of the line. And where the two shadings overlap, the green part, that is the solution to the system of inequalities. Any of the points that fall in this section right here would be a solution. Now our last example is going to be a situation where there's no solution. Let's go ahead and graph these two lines. You'll notice this will be a set of parallel lines because they both have the same slope. So we're going to go ahead and plot the y-intercept, which is 1, and then the slope is -3. So we're going to go down 3 and to the right 1, down 3 and to the right 1. And it's going to be a solid line. Now let's test 0, 0. If I plugged in 0, 0, I would have 0 is greater than or equal to 1, which is not true. So I don't want to shade in the part with 0, 0. I want to shade in the other part. Now let's go ahead and graph the second line. -2 is the y-intercept. And the slope is -3 again, so we're going to go down 3 and to the right 1. And it's going to be a solid line again. And let's go ahead and test 0, 0. 0 is less than or equal to negative 2, and that is not correct. So 0, 0 is not part of the solution, so we want to shade the opposite side. So if we shade this part of the line, at no point will my two shadings overlap, so therefore there is no solution.